Hey guys, I'm Davey Wavy, creator of the gay erotic website Himeros.tv, and today I am joined by sex and intimacy coach Finn Dearhart and disability awareness consultant Andrew Gurza and his sister Heather, who are both co-founders of Bumpin', a startup creating the first line of accessible sex toys. So we will be chatting about that in today's video called Evil Impulse. So let's get started. I'm so excited that you guys are both here. Also, I'm excited that you're here, Finn, but especially you guys, Andrew and Heather, because we have never had a brother and sister duo. And I love that we're going to be like reviewing a gay porn together. Like that doesn't cross a boundary for you.
Hey, like whatever we need to do.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's kind of like par for the course if you're going to be like, starting a sex toy company, right? Like,
Totally. It's one of those things where you're just like, and this is my job now. It's totally for work.
Yeah.
And it's kind of awesome.
Heather, are you Canadian too, or are you somewhere else in the world?
I'm Canadian, but I'm living in Australia. I was back in Canada for the last few months, and I just arrived back in Australia a couple of days ago.
Okay, well then that's another layer of excitement that we're also talking to two Canadians, and not to like perpetuate stereotypes, but I think like poutine and foreskin and all my holes get hungry. So
I didn't
Checking
realize
all the
that.
boxes.
I didn't realize that foreskin was a iconically Canadian thing that we had.
Well, you know what? It's just in the U.S. we have so little of it that when you do have a foreskin hankering, the easiest place to get that satisfied is just kind of crossing the border up north. And with the pandemic and travel restrictions, we have a lot of very deprived Americans at the moment.
All the cravings.
I think that foreskin tourism is gonna rebound.
It's going to take off in 2022.
Yeah, totally. So I just want to read a little bit of your bios for our audience. Andrew Gurza is an award-winning disability awareness consultant, content creator, and the chief disability officer at Bumpin'. He's also the host of Disability After Dark, the podcast shining a bright light on disability stories, which won a Canadian Podcast Award in 2021. Congratulations.
Thank you.
In 2019, he starred in his first adult film for Himeros.tv. Heather, I imagine you didn't see that one.
No, there's some things that I prefer to gloss over.
Yeah. Okay. And you can find out more about Andrew by going to andrewgurza.com and connecting with him on social media at andrewgurza_. And Heather is co-founder and CEO of Bumpin', a startup creating the first line of accessible sex toys, and Andrew's sister, as we mentioned. Previous to dedicating her time to lifting up the disabled community, she spent over a decade as an award-winning advertising and innovation strategist. So this sounds like an amazing pairing, an amazing marriage of like skill sets and opportunities. So congratulations on yeah totally. So before we get into it, we start each podcast with a few icebreaker questions, and it's kind of just a chance to share a little bit about ourselves. And this week the first question is, what genre of porn do you find most arousing, even if you're embarrassed to admit it? And I would like to kick things off with Finn.
Well, I actually don't feel embarrassed about it. That's the thing. I feel like
then that's no fun.
The question makes an assumption, and I don't feel like I don't feel embarrassed about it, and I also feel ambivalent about porn. But yeah, but if I guess I would say like maybe more the quirkier kind of genre for Finn, maybe, and you already know this, I think would be like something that has to do with power dynamics and religious officials, anything in that realm, like Mormon boys or something. But again, I don't feel embarrassed about it. I just feel like, well, this is so obvious. Like I come from a preacher's family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
and
the
it's
Mormon boys, the little butt plug thing.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, taking advantage of these guys, and it's just like maybe there's something about the values clash, but I also am all about like exploring that. So I don't feel embarrassed, but it's not something I guess I would like, I don't know, maybe tell like
well, you just
my sister.
That's fair. Andrew, what's yours?
Again, not really embarrassed about it. I guess I do like porn with power play. I like porn with a lot of leather and kink stuff happening, and like sub and dom stuff is fun for me to watch. Again, not really embarrassed. That's kind of the stuff I like to watch.
Okay, well, I'm plenty embarrassed for all of you, so I'll save mine to the end. Heather, what's your favorite genre?
Oh God, I haven't actually watched a lot of porn lately, but I will say that if I can, and this is maybe a little bit embarrassing, but if I'm reading like a book that's got a bit of a storyline and then it gets a bit kinky, like that's probably the most that gets me going the most because I'm emotionally involved to some degree, and then like not like enough times I'll have to put the book down and like finish myself off, and then I'll keep going on the book. So it's
awesome.
more like that. Yeah, it's a little bit more like I don't put it on as much. But if I'm into a book and then it gets kinky, then like that'll definitely get me going.
Yeah, there's a book that I read years ago called A Billion Wicked Thoughts, and they talked about the top 5 or top 10 like porn sites for men are all videos, like streaming videos, and the top 5 or 10 sites for women are all erotic stories.
That's so interesting.
And it really is, because it's like, is it nature? Is it nurture? Like, what about that? Like, the conditioning? Is it our minds different? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it does bring a lot of questions. So it's interesting that you said that you like to read a book.
Yeah, totally. I've had to put down a few books.
Do you ever isn't there like an app? I think it's called Dipsy. Do you ever listen to the app of erotic stories?
Yeah, Dipsy's awesome. I love what they've done all around like the oral pleasure. I think that's really cool. Haven't listened to it too much, but I've listened to it a few times, and it's not quite it doesn't get me as excited as like the novels, but I think it's really awesome.
What's the most embarrassing book that's turned you on?
Oh my God. I don't know.
Something by Danielle Steele.
Well, it's not even, it's like none of them are even sex books. It's just like a normal book, and then all of a sudden there'll be like some sort of a sex scene just as part of the story, and that's what will do it for me. I'll come back to you on that. Let me think, because there's probably a few embarrassing ones, but they're not like
Twilight or something.
Okay, I really got off on Harry Potter now.
Oh my God. Okay, well,
This is great.
Don't be embarrassed, because mine's like even worse. So for me, it changes. Like, there was a time where I was really into like size differences, and so I like these like animated porns of like little tiny people with really big people, which was, I'm like, what is this? But lately, it's been actually very specifically this week. I saw a video where it was like these two like straight guys like in a frat, and they're both like 30 years old. And they're like pretending they're in this frat, and it's like so cliche, like will they, won't they, and like, yeah, like, well, maybe we should just like jerk off, and like they pull their dicks out. It's embarrassing because there's nothing interesting about it whatsoever. And it's like, and I'm like, why am I so into this?
What's the genre called?
Why are you so into it? You know.
Okay, if I had to guess, I think it's because Okay. I was actually thinking about this. This is why it's embarrassing. I was thinking about this yesterday at the gym, because there was this really hot, I'm like turning red. There's this really hot straight guy at my gym, and I was thinking about how I just never fucking like fit in with like the cool jocks,
the dude
at
bros.
school. Like, totally. I'm such a faggot. I was always a faggot. Like, I was like feminine, and like I couldn't throw football, and I was just like I never fit. And I like that, like, the faggoty guy in the video like seduces the straight guy, and maybe it like appeases some fundamental insecurity that I have. Like, it's like, yes, like, this is what I want. I want to belong. Like, I want to be one of the boys. I want to be enough. I want to be accepted. I want to be seen.
Well, then it just makes it
And in
sadder,
control.
then, doesn't
It just makes it sad, not embarrassing.
Well, and you identify with the guy that's more femmy in the scene?
I think I'm like, oh, if he can do it, like, I can do it too. Like,
Yeah.
I this is my pathway to acceptance. I don't know.
Well, it's legitimizing. I mean, dude, everything about fantasy and porn is all about like something about ourselves that we're projecting onto others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a hot mess. Okay.
I find it endearing. I really appreciate you sharing. Thank you for going there.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay, so the next one is, I guess this is kind of a similar vein. I wrote both of the questions today.
We didn't
What's
get
a
back to
porn
that book, though. Heather's book.
I don't have it yet. I'll try and think about it and come back to you. I don't. It's not like a Danielle Steele. It'll be like something. Let me have a scroll through my Kindle app.
Okay. What's a porn video that you watched and were aroused by, and you were surprised by your arousal? It's like, oh, this is oh. Finn, what's your answer?
Well, I'd say something in Hump Festival. Multiple videos in Hump Festival. I saw a video. So probably my first time I ever experienced an erotic, like witnessing like a trans person, watched a trans man dominating a guy, and the guy that he was dominating was like a big muscle dude, and the trans man didn't have a cock, but it was just like at this time when I saw it, it was just like a big eye-opening experience for me to be like, oh, it's so much about energy, so much more than physique of like, you know, what you were going to put into somebody. And it was really arousing, and I was surprised, not I guess because I just had never seen it before, and it blew open like some assumptions I was carrying.
Which Hump Festival was this?
It was maybe like 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
They've had some really good content. They had a video, now that you say that, and it was like a lesbian, and she was making like a starfish, and each of her limbs was entering another lesbian. It was like filmed from overhead. So she had like a lesbian in each fist, and then like a lesbian on each foot, like going into their vaginas. It was really intense. I don't know if I was like aroused, but I was like, oh, this is interesting. Andrew, what's your surprise arousal?
I haven't watched any porn recently that really got me aroused, to be honest. If I'm really honest, I haven't watched any.
Okay.
And because most of it, like you said earlier, Davey, it's so generic. It's so like, okay, we're going to do this, and every time I watch a porn now, I look at it and go, oh, cool, okay, cool. How would a wheelchair user fit in here? Like, so I'm never watching it to be aroused. I'm looking at the angles, being like, how would they film this if somebody were disabled, and how would it be different? So I'm doing it from a very critical like disability space, not really to be like turned on.
Yeah. There can still, even in porn that is like kind of yawn and cringeworthy, sometimes a specific model will bring like an energy to it.
Yeah,
that's also like a little bit interesting. But
I mean, I will say the one that you produced that I helped with, the one with Pierce and that guy whose name I'm blanking. Yeah, that's right. I thought, I mean, I looking back on that, I watched that 2 or 3 times, and that did, when I watched it, that definitely was arousing, because it was a different kind of porn, and the way that Kenneth just wanted to get face fucked by this dude and just enjoy that was really cool.
Yeah, you gave us a lot of really good notes on that, like when we were filming it, to really focus the pleasure on like Pierce as well, so it's not just like he's doing it for Kenneth, but that they're both really enjoying this experience.
Yeah.
And that was a fun one to film. Finn, you were there when we did that, right?
Yeah. It was actually my first set experience, with y'all.
I think that was when Finn called me out. I'm like a stage mom on set, so like if the models are like sucking cock, I'm off to the side and I'm like, like making the face, like I've got my mouth open. I'm like sucking an imaginary dick while it's happening.
So I'm really glad that the
big mouth.
I'm really glad that the porn I did for you were not there, because I would have died laughing. I wouldn't have been able to do anything because I would have fallen apart laughing.
Yeah, I get into it. Heather, have you watched a porn that you were surprised you were aroused by?
So when I was in my more formative years, I had a very experimental relationship with my first boyfriend, and we watched a lot of porn. And one of our favorites, it's been such a long time, I can't remember the name of it, but it had Jenna Jameson and another girl. And it was much more of an artsy side of Jenna Jameson. It wasn't in her early years. It was a little bit later on. And it was just the two of them. And it starts out, there's no storyline. It's just a bunch of different scenes. But it's much more artsy. And like, it goes to weird places, as in some of the scenes, they're wearing, like, dish gloves. So it wasn't, like, straight. right. Like, it wasn't like, it was quirky, and it took it places. But I loved that. It was like one of our favorites because it had like a slightly like elevated mood to it. It was a bit more artsy, a bit more production value. There was no story, so it wasn't like I was along for the story of it. And I've never really been into girl on girl, but weirdly, my partner loved it, and so between the two of us, I think it hit a lot of boxes. And then we ended up trying like a whole bunch of stuff. We watched a lot of porn just to see like where else we could take the relationship, what else we might want to explore and experiment with. So yeah, that was the one that kept coming back, and we watched it loads. And in retrospect, it's interesting because it doesn't have the storyline, which I think today I kind of look for a little bit more of that like emotional tether. And it was girl on girl, and that's not really something that I'm that into. So that's mine. I'll try and find. I've been Googling. I've been trying to find and remember what the what the name of it is in case there's any interested parties.
Did you order dishwashing gloves afterwards?
I think we did. we definitely never looked at them the same way. You come home from like a long day at work and your partner's doing the dishes and you're like, is this a sign? Is this like you're waiting for me to get kinky or?
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
So I recently watched a video, and it was like a grandpa and a twink. I don't even know what it was that like made me click on it, but it was this like beautiful, smooth, like Timothée Chalamet, like Renaissance looking, like ruddy cheeks, curly hair, like lean athletic body, like boy. And then this grandpa who was very much like not traditionally like handsome. Like he wasn't a Pierce Brosnan grandfather. He was like kind of more rotund, hairy, like just I would say like an acquired taste. And I was really turned on by it. Like I don't know if it was the contrast. I think probably also it was just very transgressive. Like it's this thing that's like not supposed to happen. You know, it was like very taboo and naughty, and I like naughty.
It's also a great name for a porn, Acquired Taste. You should make one that call it that if you haven't already.
Yeah, I think today's video is an example of an acquired taste. We'll talk more about that in a second. But I do want to talk about Bumpin'. We have a lot to cover. It's the first sex toy company created for and by disabled people. And your product is the Bumpin' joystick. It's currently available for pre-order. Before we get to the joystick itself, I want to learn a little bit more about the problem that this product solves. And Andrew, I'm curious what your experience has been with sex toys, because you have hand limitations, and what has that been for you?
Yeah, my experience with like off the shelf sex toys hasn't been super positive, because many of the sex toys that are on the market have really small buttons, are really hard to get into place and keep into place, or if you're required to like pump them up and down to get pleasure. That for me, with my limited hand dexterity, because of my cerebral palsy and my spasticity, that's not something that I can really do. So I'll share a brief story. A couple years ago, I was asked by a sex toy company to test their toy as a disabled reviewer and give a review. So I went to go pick up the toy from the post, and I realized just from looking at the box that I couldn't even open the box. So I was nervous, and I kept it in the box for weeks. And I finally found a caregiver that I trusted and said, hey, I want to jerk off today. Do you think you could help me put this toy on? And she agreed to. And she said, okay, well, I'm going to put it on, but I'll be back in 20 minutes. Like, best of luck. And I was like, well, but what if it takes me longer than 20 minutes to, like, bust a nut? Maybe I need more time to get off. And so then she put it on me, and the toy was going. She put the button on, and I didn't have enough dexterity to get down and push the button off. And so it ended up hurting me. And so I called her back within 5 minutes and was like, no, this is really painful. Please come take it off. And I just realized that I couldn't actually use the toy because of the way the buttons were and how small it was.
So in creating this product, I mean, I have so much respect for both of you. I know how difficult it is to launch anything, and there's so many layers to it. But even as you're saying that, I'm like, oh, so you also have to think, in addition to the product itself, like it sounds like you have to consider like product packaging. Like,
Totally.
Really a million details that people might not think of.
Exactly. We have to look at the whole user experience and user journey, everything from like obviously like ordering these days online is pretty easy, but then from packaging, unboxing, use, storage, cleaning, um, charging. Did I say that one already? Like you have to kind of think through every single stage and think about it from a disability point of view and make sure that you're not designing this amazing product and then people can't get it out of the box, or people can't charge it, or people can't store it, or people can't assemble it. And so it adds like so many extra layers of complexity. It means that like holistically you're creating this amazing accessible product, but it does also mean that where a lot of other companies might be able to take like the route of just, you know, an off the shelf package or something that's already kind of been created, a lot of times because we're one of the first people designing for this, like we have to do it from scratch, which means we have to think through the design, we have to come up with the design, and that all cost like takes time and money and all the things.
Before we started recording, Finn and I, we were all just kind of chatting about like how it works and what the product looks like. Obviously, this is a podcast, so for our audience, Heather or Andrew, can you describe like what the product looks like, how it works, how does it function? I'd love to hear
Sure.
more.
I'll start off, Andrew, and then if you want to jump in as I'm going.
Yeah.
So we found that the biggest barrier when we were doing our research to people being able to self-pleasure and also to being able to use the toys on the market was in and around any sort of hand limitations. And that could be pretty broad, from like dexterity, fine motor skills, to reach, to just like hand pain or hand weakness. It can actually include grip, can include a whole bunch of things. And so we've looked at how we can design our first product to sort of overcome the requirement for like hands and fine motor skills. So because it's kind of trying to remove hands from the equation, what ends up happening is that's actually quite big because we're trying to recruit other like motor skills and other muscle groups. So the way that I like to describe it, especially if people can't see it, is if a body pillow and a foam roller had like a magical, slightly naughty love child. It's quite big. You can hug into it. The top part is made of really comfortable memory foam that people can hug around. And then the bottom, the half, is made from foam. And we can insert different sex toys that are already on the market into sort of cavities that are in that lower section. So basically it's like if you had this marriage between a top or upper half body pillow and the lower half foam roller that also vibrated or gave you a penis sleeve or something like that to also make you feel good.
And
So
so you were saying it's basically like you can plug in different existing toys to it. So this is kind of like the like foundation. You can put in whatever it is that you like, a flesh jack or like an existing market toy. When I was watching the pre-order video, I was thinking like, even though this was specifically designed for people with disabilities, it's also great for able-bodied people too, because like you can kind of interact with this physical body that like holds the toy for you. Like it really can enhance the experience for anyone.
Yeah, exactly. Like when we first were looking at the initial designs and the concepts, I was just coming out of like 6 weeks of like pretty solitary lockdown in the first wave of COVID. And I was like, yeah, well, I'll take a few of those. Thank you. Like, that looks great. Like, because one of the things that we've heard from people who have tested, that we like functionally, we knew like comfort was obviously important because we want people to like hug around it and for that to feel good. But a lot of people have been talking about like the emotional benefit and intimacy that they've received from the act of hugging into something that feels comfortable, but then is also giving them sexual pleasure. And I think we didn't really recognize in the beginning like how much of an emotional benefit there was going to be to people. So when you think of like the fact that like loneliness is on the rise and intimacy is decreased and we're all craving more touch and more intimacy, but that, you know, none of us know if there's going to be another wave or another lockdown, or for whatever reason you're just not being able to get that. Hearing from people who are testing it, that it's giving them that sort of level of intimacy that they've been missing was really awesome and totally unexpected.
Yeah, when I use a flesh jack, I mean, usually I'm sitting down and I'm just lifting it up and down, up and down, up and down. Like that's not how you have sex, and so I've kind of like trained my dick to get off from this very like unnatural like action that I'm doing, and so at some point during lockdown, I was like, I'm gonna retrain my dick, and so I put my flesh jack into the couch, and I like laid on top of it. I put it like the crease of the couch, and I was like, I'm gonna, and like I just tried and tried and tried, and I was like humping my couch. My poor couch probably is still like traumatized from this, and there's like lube spilling everywhere.
Note to self: anyone who's going to hang out at Davey's house.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I did put a blanket down, but yeah, don't sit on the couch. But Finn, doesn't that sound like something that like it would be like fun to try as well? Like it's a good idea.
Totally, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
We'll have to get you when we've got physical product. We'll have to get you one and see how it compares to the sofa cushions.
Yeah. I do think it's a step up. How did you guys decide that you like wanted to do this together?
And
like specifically together.
Yeah, well, I had been in a documentary in 2017 called Picture This, where they followed me around for a year, and I talked about queerness, my disability, and sexuality. And so that documentary went down to Sydney, Australia, and Heather saw it. And in the documentary, I talk about how I have lost the ability to masturbate and self-pleasure because of the spasticity and the tightness of my hands. And I kind of talk about how, it made me feel like I lost my manhood, my masculinity, my sense of self, and my queerness. I lost all that because when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I could just whip out my dick and jerk off, go to sleep, and things were great. But losing that was really, really hard for me. So I talk about that in the doc, and then Heather saw the documentary. Before this, we weren't really talking about our masturbatory habits together.
Shocking. Yeah, we didn't have like this interesting, brother-sister relationship where we were super open before and sat around talking about our sometimes sex lives, but definitely not masturbation.
This has opened some new doors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then she saw the documentary, and it gave her a light bulb moment. And I was visiting her the next spring, I think, in Sydney, and we were walking on the beach, and she says, "So I saw your documentary, and you talked about, the treat your trouble masturbating. Why don't you just use the toys on the market?" And I kind of rolled my eyes and showed her my hands again, and said, "Well, none of the toys on the market work for me. Like, they just don't work." And I explained again, and she kind of looked at me and said, "Well, do you want to make one?" And so we kind of naively went into it that way, and then we put a call out on, probably about 2 or 3 weeks later, we put a call out on Reddit and asked a bunch of questions to see if it was a bigger need than just, let's make a toy for Andrew to get off. And we found that 92% of people that we spoke to and we surveyed in that survey said we want a toy like this. So we very quickly realized that it was a much bigger need than just one person can't get off. It was actually affecting hundreds of millions of people in the population.
Yeah. Since you guys basically did this from scratch, again, like, it's such an incredible amount of work, so much respect for you guys. What has been the biggest kind of surprise or challenge for you in tackling, like, something that you maybe didn't see coming, or like, oh, this is super fucking complicated?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much. I think if like
everything.
Yeah, everything. I think and Andrew kind of hit it on the head earlier. Like, we were so naive that day when we were like, let's make a sex toy. Like, we had no idea like how hard it is to bring like a physical product into the world, and how much upfront capital is required to bring that into the world. And like, I think if you want to be an entrepreneur, you kind of have to go into it with a bit of naivety. Otherwise, you'd never ever do it. Like, there's just so many things. Recently, we rebranded, and we were originally called Handy. There was a lot of like emotional reasons why we called Handy, but also we were designing around hands. It's like a merge between mine and Andrew's name, and it obviously positively reappropriates the term handicapped for the disabled community, but doesn't do it in such a way that's exclusive or isolating or overt. And so that's why we landed on Handy originally. And then a few months ago, we found out that globally we were going to be in some trademark issues if we continued with the name Handy. And this is after 2 years of driving like tons of awareness around the name, like basically trading under it, building a community around it. And that was probably one of the hardest pills to swallow, that we just didn't see coming totally, it was because we were so green at the beginning that we thought if we spelled the name, or I was anyway, that we spelled the name differently, then that would be fine, which is wrong. It's not. And so unfortunately, there is another company called the company is called Sweet Tech. The brand is called The Handy. It's a male masturbator. And they own the trademark The Handy, spelled with a Y. And we're pretty insistent that we change it, and fair enough. But that was really, really tricky because we then needed to try and find a new name that had as much like emotional resonance, could set us up for the future, that kind of took on all the stuff that we'd already built, had the like brand personality attached to it, and wasn't going to get us in any like hot water, and like globally wasn't trademarked. So trying to find something that hit all those boxes was really, really tricky.
Yeah. I think Bumpin', I think that's great. I think you guys you landed on something really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this so much. I was actually wondering if, as a sex educator, I'm wanting to like help promote the product even just because I think that I already have the link on my site, but I want to know if there's like what other ways would be helpful to get this in other people's face more.
Just more promotion, and just talk about it. Tell people that it's out there. Tell them that it's the first of its kind. And if you have clients or people that you work with hand limitations, let them know that there's something out there for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think like one of the things that we found since we've launched too, and we kind of already knew this was going to be a theme, because like the toy, because nobody else has ever designed around this barrier before in this space. We knew that like when people see it, like it's not an immediate get. It's not like, oh, I totally understand how that works. That's a male masturbator. That's this. So there's a lot of like education that goes along with it, and that can be particularly tricky when you've only got renders and you don't have the physical product yet. So we're definitely creating more like educational content that kind of takes people through it. But as we start to get prototypes, if it's something that you'd be keen to explore and just see how it works, we'd be happy to send you them. I think what's going to help people really like understand if and how it can work for them is having people like yourselves who are working in this space take a look at it, see how it works for their clients, and actually be able to give recommendations based on the use as well as versus just based on the concept.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what is happening in your background? Is that like
oh
a
my god,
parakeet?
I'm so sorry. Yeah, so
It's fine. I'm like, what is this, a jungle?
Yeah, so I live like right behind like a big gully, and I've been home only like 3 days now, and like the birds are going mental. I don't know if they missed me. Like they're like these little
Sounds like
tiny
Jurassic
green
Park.
birds, and they're like they travel in packs, and they come around. They're just so loud. Like I'm not outside.
It sounds lovely. I'm just like, is it like birds? Is it raptors? Like,
Yeah, what's
gonna
going
say, it
on?
totally
Are you
sounds
okay?
Yeah. It's like a Stephen King moment.
Yeah, totally. That's yeah. I lost my train of thought, but
We were talking about
We should
promoting.
yeah, Andrew, when it does come out, we'll have to do some sort of YouTube collaboration with it to show people. Like, because on the website, I didn't get a sense of scale when I like clicked to see it. Like, it's a big product, and so we were talking about the price point. What was the price point for it? For pre-orders?
The price point is $250 US.
With a
$250
$99 deposit. So basically, what that helps us do is actually pay for the production run, because we're only going to create a small production run at first. Like we don't want to create so many and then have like a ton that don't get sold or whatever that are sitting in a warehouse somewhere. So we're creating a really small production run, which just means that like when you're in manufacturing, one of the hard lessons you learn is when you're doing it small, everything costs more, because the way that it works is the more you make, the less you pay.
Yeah, but I've promoted a lot of sex toys that are kind of in that price point range, and it's one toy specifically, and this is something that's like bigger than that, both in scale and what it's able to bring to your life. Like you're not just paying for a toy, like you're paying for the freedom that it creates for you. Like you're paying for the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I think the price point is totally reasonable, given all the work that you guys are doing.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, and it's cool because you can put like, one thing that we found, because we've been so snoopy in people's bedrooms the last couple of years, is that a lot of people have like spent and paid really good money. I'm trying to escape the birds. Have spent and paid really good money on toys, thinking they could work, get them home for whatever reason. Like they're too heavy, they don't quite work, their hands get tired, etc. And then they end up having this kind of like sex toy graveyard in their drawers. One girl had an entire suitcase, and she couldn't really use them, and she'd spent all this money on them. And so for us, like being able to offer basically what's an adapter to let you like sort of like breathe new life into those toys that you wanted to use but thought you couldn't, also opens up like a whole bunch of extra options for you as well. So and whilst we are also developing like our own accessible big button toys with big buttons that will sit in the middle of those of the joystick as well.
Andrew, I just want to know how many prototypes you had to fuck the bejesus out of in order to land on this one.
I got to do, when we were doing the initial testing, I was sent so many different types of toys, and I was sent so many different types of vibrators, and then I would have to have really awkward conversations with my caregivers about like, okay, so I have to lie in the bed and pretend to like get off with the toy, and so then I would feedback that info to the team. And just be like, yeah, this one didn't feel good. I mean, there's a picture of me somewhere on my social media of me holding all the vibrators and the dildos that I tested. I mean, I got to do all the fun stuff, but then I got to feedback the reality of whether or not they worked to the team, and I love doing that because I could give them a real world perspective on like, here's why this actually wouldn't work for somebody with my hand limitations, and I think that's really valuable.
But how many joystick prototypes did you also have to fuck the bejesus out of?
Andrew didn't get to fuck any of them because it was during lockdown, and so we made them all in Australia, and the shipping time would have been like months and months because the like logistics were all shut down. It would have been irrelevant. So what we did instead is we got 10 amazing testers around Australia to fuck the bejesus out of them, and then we had their OTs there if they needed help as well. So Andrew, for once, had to get enjoyment by proxy.
Good, yeah.
God damn it, Andrew! Someone's getting us on this.
So where can people go to pre-order?
They can go to www.getbumpin.com. That's GETBUMPN.com.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Anything else you want to add before we move on?
I think, well, right now we've got a discount on the site, which is awesome. It is limited run because we're just trying to get the first run out there. So it's first come, first serve, which we obviously have a lot of fun playing up that pun. And we'll be, if you join the mailing list,
I saw that in the video.
We'll be doing like promotions and Christmas stuff. We'll also be offering gift cards. Like we know that for people on a fixed income, some people are saving up. So we're just looking at, ways to help people get their hands on one, no pun intended. And yeah, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to shoot us a message as well.
Awesome. Himeros Backstage is supported by Himeros.tv. It is here. Today marks the launch of our annual year-end blowout, and in a time of massive price increases, our annual sale is on change. You can get a year of Himeros.tv for just $99 at Himeros.tv/pleasure. That's just $8.25 per month, and it's a 45% discount. Himeros.tv collaborates with award-winning filmmakers and the world's best gay sex experts to create hot erotic videos that'll do more than just get you off. With 20,000 minutes of content, you'll see everything from hot ass-fucking action to instructional videos about masturbation techniques or full-body orgasms. Get your membership for just $99 at Himeros.tv/pleasure today. And just a little bit of housekeeping. We are now... The tickets are available for the Himeros experience in 2022, which is going to be in East Mountain in upstate New York, where we held it last year. I think it's early October. So if you go to Himeros.tv and click the events button, you'll get $100 off your tickets as part of the early bird special. And we also have a new documentary up on Himeros.tv featuring Benny Blazin. If you haven't seen that yet, you should totally watch it. It's 6 minutes. It's available to even non-members. You just have to scroll to the front of the homepage and you'll see all of our latest documentaries. That's totally awesome and worth watching, especially to give you a little bit of context for the videos featuring Benny that will be coming out in the weeks and months ahead. All right, let's discuss Evil Impulse. This is filmed by Ed, and it is a Finn Deerhart original from the infamous Gore and Gold series. It features Alex Knight and
Infamous.
Clark. Yes?
Why infamous?
Well, I think after... What was the other one that we did that was
The
a
gun.
little bit edgy with the gun in it?
Smoking gun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Smoking gun, yeah. Yeah, I think it's become a little... It has reached infamous status. Alex Knight and Clark Lewis. Here's what Finn wrote. Two men are enjoying a romantic dinner, and unexpectedly it takes a delightful turn into the darker passions of cruelty and the joy of administering pain to one who will accept it. This demonstrates an explicit negotiation of consent, container, ritual, and practice. Finn, what did you want this video to convey, and do you feel like the video accomplished that?
I love these questions. Wink, wink. It's going to mean different things to different people. And I will say, okay. If I had to boil it down, I would want people to be in touch with their own sense of cruelty. I mean, a large amount of our time as humans and our psyches goes toward supporting our personas and minimizing the experiences that don't align with that chosen persona. And at the same time, we have moments every day almost where we're in touch with it. Like if someone cuts you off in traffic and you're like, fuck, you like yell, or like in partnerships and like boyfriends, if you get hurt and you want the other one to be hurt back, it's a moment of cruelty. And I think that what I was trying to get at in this was like, make it conscious, play with it, and then there's something that happens in the psyche when we make something conscious as we transform it. So I don't think compassion is possible truly if we don't touch what's in the way of compassion. So that's the meta level that I was writing about. And I will say, I think Ed, I love tossing something at Ed and seeing what he does, because I think it's fair to say, like, I put it out there, but it was really Ed and the actors that did the amazing work of this film. Like I was surprised when I watched it, just to see where it went, because I wasn't there when they filmed it, and I thought it was amazing, and that was them.
Well, especially like given who's in it. Like Clark is, like Finn and I have worked with the Dom in this scene. Clark, he is so sweet. Like he's such a sweet, gentle human being. And I was like, wow, I really wonder how he's gonna embody this, and I think he did a really good job. Like, I think he really got into character.
He did,
yeah.
And to be fair, like, yeah, he's sweet. This is exactly what I'm talking about, though. That's right. Yes, he's sweet, and that's also part of his persona. And there's a part of Clark that's not sweet at all, and we got to see an authentic representation of that in a place where he can be valued, rather than in a situation in life where that cruelty might come through and he might risk judgment or humiliation.
So this video was not a big hit at Himeros. Just kind of judging from the comments.
What did they say?
Well, I'll read them in a second. I love having these conversations, but like obviously there's part of me that like wants everyone to like all the videos that we create. I want to be like validated by it. But I'm also okay with us striking out for people because it means we're exploring edges and boundaries. Mm-hmm. And like I think we hit some edges with this. And like I'm okay with not everyone being comfortable with every single video that we make, and I think this video is very effective at being sadistic, and I think like I don't know, I like part of me is like, yeah, like I'm still proud of this video. Like I think, yes, Finn, do you want to say something?
Well, not while you're saying something though. Finish your thought. I just wanted to let you know.
That's my thought. Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
Okay, so I'm surprised to hear that that people weren't digging it, because when I was watching, I was like, wow, this is really cool. I've had a personal reaction where I really liked it, but also I'm from San Francisco, where it's like, this is so tame compared to like what I've actually seen in person. Like seriously, this is like fucking vanilla compared to what I've watched with my own eyes in front of people. And it's so not consistent with like people like the spanking videos and stuff. Like it's just like, okay, but like they're really getting into this character where it touches the feelings from which these activities, like when I don't know, like the spanking video for instance was kind of a hit,
yeah,
a while back. Well, fucking come on, it's the same thing, it's just like a little bit more close to the bone, I would say, and maybe that's why people don't like it. That's just my thought. I don't know.
Andrew, I'm curious what you thought of the video. And this is honest. Like, you don't have to be like, I liked it. Like, please, like, feel free to give your honest feedback.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be 100% real with you. It wasn't my cup of tea initially. I watched it twice. Didn't super love it. I now hearing from you about what you were trying to do, I get it more. But I wasn't super like turned on while watching it. To be honest, I really wasn't.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think there's people who are like, the first comment was like, "Oh my god, I fucking love like sadistic shit," and like there's people who are like really turned on by it, admit it, love it. I think there's also a second category of people who are turned on but maybe not ready to admit it, and then there's a third category of people, maybe like you, Andrew, who are like genuinely like, this isn't my thing. But I think there's probably a bigger group of people in that like second category that are like kind of into it and curious but like aren't ready to tell themselves that.
I mean, I could get the appeal. Like, I understood why parts of people watching it would love it. I totally get that. I just wasn't. It didn't ring my bell at all.
Heather, how was watching this video for you?
Well, I admittedly don't watch a heap of gay porn, but or male on male. But I thought it was so. For me, so one thing that I like immediately started to do was like look to see if there's like any notes I should be taking for my own for my own self. Like, I honestly believe that if more guys, you know, talked to lesbians about their lovemaking and how to turn a woman on, there'd be a lot more satisfied women in straight relationships, because I think a lot of guys don't necessarily, you know, a lot of guys just don't really know what they're doing, let's be honest. And so for me, like, I'm not naive enough to think that maybe there's some tips that I could pick up along the way from you've got one of these, like, you probably know what feels good better than I do. So hilariously, I was like looking to see if there was stuff that I could pick up. But I'm like, I was like, oh, that's an interesting blowjob technique. He doesn't get his hand involved in there at all.
But straight guys would never do that because they don't give a shit, because like they come every time. And,
exactly. Like, don't I know it?
Yeah.
But like, if they cared a little bit, I honestly do think like a, you know, lesbian couple doing a podcast on for straight guys would be fucking fantastic, and would really go a long way for womankind.
But first they would have to admit that they're like maybe don't know everything about like eating a girl's pussy.
A struggle.
Like, that's a step too far.
Exactly. Meanwhile, here's the extent that women will go to. Like, all right, cool. Like, what can I learn? Mm-hmm. So there was hilariously, I did kind of shift into that gear, and then I thought like, I kind of appreciated the fact that it was like not a typical like just like down and dirty porn, and that there was like a bit more of a backstory if you kind of wanted to let your mind like wander, like, because even though there was like a lot of like maybe sadism for some people or like domination, there was also like some tenderness. And so for me, I was like, I spent quite a bit of time like thinking about like, what is this relationship actually? Is it just like two people meeting up and having this like experience, or are they actually like more of a relationship and this is something they like and there's like a little back and forth? And I appreciated like the music, the soundtrack, and like just the way that the actors carried it off, because I think it wasn't like you're just expected, you just watch like, you know, somebody ramming somebody else or whatever. It was a lot, or like your typical storyline of like, hey, I'm here to clean the pipes or whatever. There was a lot more like nuance, and I appreciated it for that as well.
Yeah. What are you say, Finn?
Well, I just want to keep going. I love what Heather is saying, and I will say for me, I don't actually write stuff to arouse people. Maybe it's like bizarre that I'm writing for this company in a sense, because I write something, maybe if it arouses you, great, but if it touches something in you, great, that's real, I also really value that as a writer. And that's in my own work, you know, that in my memoir, it's like I write some things where I have to ask myself, do I really want to share this, because I don't know how people are going to receive it. And I'm like, well, this is true for me. And so there's that. But then there's like a lot of people, many of whom I actually know personally, who went through a lot of really fucked up shit as kids. And identification with the aggressor is one way that people play with that in the kink scene. And I'm not saying that everyone that likes power play has trauma in their history, but there are a lot of people who have trauma in their history who actually like to play with these kind of dynamics. Some of those are sadistic dynamics, masochism, and it's a way to actually reclaim what was really painful. And so like consensual non-consent, like rape fantasy, like that stuff is really actually healing for people. So I write with that in mind, you know. So I wrote it with this idea that they had to, what Heather was saying, that this is a relationship in which they're actually acting out something that needs to be felt, and it's in a loving container. It's not just like gratuitous, like, you know, smacking someone around. That doesn't do anything for me, actually, personally. It's more about the significance.
I mean, well, knowing...
When you say that... Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
Sorry, Davey. Knowing that you weren't writing it to arouse somebody, I was watching it also being like, I want to have dinner with a guy. Like, it'd be nice to have dinner with a dude and maybe not have sex in the kitchen, but maybe it'd be good to have, like, a meal.
So you were hungry for something. Just...
You're like, that burger looks good. It's a multi-sensory experience, yeah. When Finn was saying that, though, like, fairly recently I had an experience where a guy was calling me a faggot, like, while we were having sex. And he was saying it, and, like, he wasn't like, oh, yeah, you fat... Like, he was, like, really, like, calling me a faggot. And I enjoyed it. It was like, I was like, yeah, I was like, I am a fucking faggot. Like, this faggot's gonna make you come. Like, I really, like, got into my own power in it.
Totally.
And, I remember reading this article. I'm not an expert, obviously, on sadomasochism, but there was an article that I read recently, and it was saying, I don't remember exactly what it was, but, like, when you're experiencing pain, even, like, physical pain in sex, it overruns some parts of our brains that handle, like, short-term memory or executive functioning, and that pain can actually, like, elevate people to higher levels of consciousness. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily mean that it would be fun to watch a video where that happens to someone, but it does mean that maybe watching that video can help kind of normalize that experience and encourage people to, like, explore and experiment.
Yeah.
Like, it's not necessarily weird.
One of the things we found when we were writing the book last year, because we talked to so many people in the disabled community about their, like, sexual experiences and stories, and one of the big themes that kept coming out was around this intersection of pleasure and pain. And for a lot of people who felt we talked to a lot of people and worked with a lot of people who had chronic pain, and for a lot of people who, like, they don't have a lot of control over whether they're feeling pain in their bodies, and so they would experiment with sexual experiences that delivered pain and sort of pushing the limits on that, because they could take back the control around how and when they felt pain in a way that also produced, like, pleasurable experience for them or potential outcome. And that was just a really, I think, just touching on kind of some of the stuff you're saying as well, like, really interesting flip of the narrative or flip of the power struggle of, and even if it's within your own body.
Do you guys watch Succession at all?
Yes, I love it.
You do watch it, Heather?
Yeah.
Andrew, do you watch it?
No, I haven't yet, but I've heard.
Okay.
I've heard so much about it, but I haven't watched it yet. No.
I'm gonna make Finn's coming to visit me next week. Finn, we're gonna watch the most recent episode. Heather, have you seen the most recent one?
No, I haven't. I'm a few episodes behind.
Okay, this isn't gonna be like a spoiler or anything, but in the most recent episode, there's this character Shiv, and she has a husband Tom, and, like, she's, like, sitting on his lap, and they're, like, about to have sex, and they're playing the sex game, and she's like, say something, like, anything that you want to say to me, like, I want you to say it. And he's like, well, why don't you say something to me? And it was, like, so hard to watch this. It was, like, so fucking uncomfortable. Finn, you're gonna be so into this show. I'm gonna turn you on to it. Mm-hmm. And so she looks at him, and she, like, looks right in his eyes, and she's like, you're not good enough for me. She's like, and he's like, what? And she's like, I'm just way out of your fucking league, and that's why you want me. That's why. She's like, and he's like, huh? And she's like, that's why you love me, even though I don't love you. You want me anyway. And she just keeps going, and they fuck, and I'm just like, this is her husband, and I'm just, like, dying, like, watching this.
Wow,
it's so good. There's a dick pic in it, Finn. Like, it's so good.
So is she saying what is true, that she's making the statement that no one has said yet, or is it that she's, like, playing a persona? Like,
no, it's definitely true.
Okay. So she's naming what hasn't been said, and so
Yeah,
Wow.
we're all thinking it.
And
Wow.
and then he has like the hangover the next day, and he's like talking to her, and he's like, did you mean that? Like, was that? And she's like, well, I don't love you, but I love you. I love, like, and it's like, it's like, what the fuck? Like, it's so, she's just like sticking the knife in him. It's just so, it's really layered and interesting. So, yeah, highly recommend. All right, I do want to read some of the comments that I had mentioned that are on the site. So here we go. Yeah, Finn's feathers are gonna get ruffled.
Wait, get my fingers up again.
Okay, so the first one says, please, more of this. I love it when you put spanking or chastity into ordinary day life themes. So that's the first one. That's the only good one.
Okay.
Then,
Wow.
Downhill from here.
Fine.
so Billy B, who comments often, says,
Yeah.
I have to admit this was a difficult one to watch. Maybe that says something about me, or maybe it says something about the boundaries I have set for myself, and maybe they are all connected. Long story short, I would have not allowed myself to be put in a position where I was degraded the way that Clark was degraded. The way Clark degraded Alex, nor do I see value in it. I have always used power dynamics and sex to bring pleasure, not humiliation. For me, I think there are healthier ways of dealing with the pain of the lived gay experience than at the expense of my own sexual partner's basic dignity. Maybe I'm missing the concept, so feel free to correct me on the podcast.
He's not missing the concept. He's just sharing his own experience. He's
Yeah.
like not able to enter into the experience of another who says this actually isn't degrading for me.
I mean,
This
I
is
think
powerful.
degradation can be really hot too. Like the way Davey was just saying that guy was calling him a faggot, and then you got into it. When people call me a cripple when I'm in bed too, I get into it, and it's fun to play with that. So I think as long as you're not dehumanizing the person and really hurting them, and you check in as you're doing it, which the two actors in the scene, they checked in with each other. There was definite check-in moments. So as long as you're both comfy with that and you're not really like scarring the other one, why not?
And even though calling me a faggot is fun for me in that particular experience I had in bed, it is not a universal thing. Like, it could be totally traumatizing and not fun for the next person, or calling someone a cripple in bed, like, also could cross a huge boundary. So it's gonna be different for different people. It's part of why sex is fun and interesting. That's why we have this damn podcast.
Oh my god.
All right, next. Oh, go ahead, Finn.
Have y'all been to Folsom Street Fair?
I wish. No, I haven't.
Okay, go to Folsom Street Fair and come back and realize that this was like, I don't know. It's just not. It's not that edgy, in my opinion.
But it's all relative, and so for people that just
Relative,
watch
yeah.
like SeanCody.com, like, this is edgy. They haven't seen people with hooks in their literal skin of their back,
Yeah.
like on
That's hard for me to watch.
things suspended. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like those
I do.
merry-go-rounds?
Yeah.
And me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah, it's really hard for me to watch too, and I just have to tell myself, like, this isn't even about me. Like, this is, what this person is.
Next comment. Usually I love the videos, but this one was dreadful. It's degrading to see these two young guys acting out some sort of drama. This seems not to be in the genre of what you usually portray. And I don't know that we have a usual genre. I think we have a wide range of different videos.
Yeah,
Which is
I mean, what I like about your studio, and I've worked with you now on some stuff. What I like about what you do is you try different things. You have so much different content that is completely different every single time, and it's artsy and it's fun, and it does have some rough edges like this one, and they're all different. But I think you're putting something out there in the porn space that's different and necessary. So I think that's great.
Yeah. No, I see. And look, like I said before, not everything we do is going to land with everyone, and that's part of the price of admission at Himeros. And next week's video, I think, actually is I think that's going to be like a home run for a lot of people. So
It's like comic like relief after like a moment in the movie
relief.
when it's really intense,
Yeah.
and everyone's like, "Oh, this is funny now."
yeah, totally. Cool. Well, we are at the top of the hour, so I'm gonna wrap things up here. Next week we're going to be discussing Three's Company. That's the first from our Hawaii series. Finn, where can people get more of you?
FinnDearheart.com.
And Heather and Andrew, where can people get more of you guys?
They can follow us at www.getbumpin.com, and then all of our socials on Twitter and Instagram are at getbumpin.
On Facebook too.
Awesome.
Look it up
And
right now.
remember, you can join Himeros.tv and save when you get your 1-year membership for just $99 at Himeros.tv/pleasure. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, more to come.